Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. In this video, we are going to take a look at a couple of comics that you may already own in your collection. And because you already own them, you might be asking yourself the question of should you get these books graded or not? This is an ongoing series that I've been doing for more than a year now, but we're going to continue it. We're going to take a look at a couple of books and we're going to try to answer the question as to whether you grade these books or not. And to do this analysis, we are going to be taking a look at comicspriceguide.com. One thing that I will say to you is if your book that you're considering getting graded is not featured in this video, leave me a comment down below and potentially your book will be featured in an upcoming episode. Stay tuned. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of examples. And we are going to get things started off with this book right here. One that I've been asked about recently. It is Avenging Spider-Man issue number 9. And this comic is the first appearance of Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel. And I was asked about this book because of the Marvels movie that was released. This book was like hot for a while, but I think has cooled off dramatically. In fact, this book has been on generally a value decline since about June of 2021. But let's go ahead and take a look at it to see whether this is one that we want to grade. In this first column, we have the condition. In the middle column, we have the raw values. And on the far side, we have the graded values. So the question becomes, is this one that we should grade or not? And the challenge, of course, is I don't know how much you have invested into the book. So I'm just looking at the straight data to make an evaluation of this one. And generally speaking, when you look at this book, the only place where I would feel comfortable sending this book in to be graded would be at the 9.8, the near mint book. That is the only place. And I say that because this book at that grade has a value of $150. When you go to the 9.6, the near mint plus, it drops down to around $75. And if you think about the cost of shipping a book to your third-party grader to and from, to clean it, to press it, again, I don't know how much you have into the book, but I don't know that I would, I don't know if I would do it and have the value come back at $75. It just doesn't seem to be enough substance there for me, right? You may draw the line a little bit differently, but if it is not a really, really nice copy, like I'm talking defect-free book, I'm not certain that I would send this book in. And folks may say, well, if you have a super clean book, would you still get it cleaned and pressed? I potentially would, right? Like I would have to take a really close look at that book to make sure that there's no fingerprints, there's no imperfections that could potentially impact the grade. You also can set a pre-screen if you decide to go that route. 9.8 or bust is basically where I would draw the line for Avenging Spider-Man issue number 9. And like I said, people were crazy about this book for quite some time, but its value has come down dramatically over the last couple of years. So that is the first book that I wanted to look at. This second book, I think, is a little bit easier. It's a little bit easier to square this one. This is World's Finest Comics, issue number 153, published in 1965. And this book right here is the one in which Batman smacks Robin. This is the source of so many memes that have made their way around the internet. Maybe not the best cover, but definitely a really cool book that I do not own this one. I don't own this one, but I would like to. I will tell you that there is limited data for this book, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But again, where would we potentially draw the line if we happen to own this book? Not a week goes by where I don't get at least one message from someone asking about pricing guides and pricing services, because people are trying to figure out what their comics are worth. And it is for that reason and several others that I am pleased to continue my relationship with comicspriceguide.com. This is the first online pricing service that was launched back in 1995. They have a database of more than 1 million comics, but not just the comics themselves. They also have corresponding values for raw books and graded books as well. So if you are trying to figure out what your books are worth, this is a fantastic resource for you. You have to check it out. There is a link down in the description. Do it today after you finish watching this video. If you had a really nice copy of this book at a 9.8, it is a no-brainer at $16.20. I mean, the raw value, according to comicspriceguide.com, is $300, but we can go ahead and go down the list. $16.20. The 9.6 drops to $800, the 9.4, $780, and it goes down from there. I would potentially draw the line around here, around the 5.5, which is fine minus. Raw value 96, graded value 178. As I mentioned, the data around this book is limited, and it's limited for several reasons. There are not a lot of copies of this book graded, right? If you're looking just at the CGC census, there are only 224 total blue label copies out there. In total, across all labels, it's only 227, right? So not a lot of copies. All labels 227, blue label 224, not a lot of copies. And as a result of that, not a whole lot of sales at the individual grades, right? So not a whole lot of transactions because there's not a whole lot of copies. I feel comfortable with the 5.5, partially because of the number of books graded at the 5.5, because I checked the census, but also because of the recency of the transactions. There are some transactions near term that give me comfort that the 5.5 at $178 is real, right? When you go to the 5.5 there, I'm sorry, the 5.0, there are a couple of more copies, but the recency of the transactional data isn't quite there. So that's why I think the 5.5 or higher. The one thing that I will say here is that not every book has to be graded, and it doesn't matter the book. Not every book has to be graded. Sometimes Mylar, Poly works perfectly. So do not feel the pressure of sending this book in. If you have it though, congrats. If you have this book, congrats, because this is a cool piece of comic book history, whether you decide to grade it or not. The source of the Batman slaps is critical. It's crucial. It's crucial to a collection. So if you have this one, congrats on that. All right. So we're going to look at one additional book. We're going to look at one more book, and this one is a image book. This one is Spawn issue number 119. And I'll tell you, I looked long and hard. I looked long and hard trying to find a cool Spawn book to showcase in this video that had some substance to it, but wasn't an obvious, like, no-brainer to send. And this is the best that I could do. It's the best that I could do. It is the cameo of Gunslinger Spawn. I had a couple of copies of this in the 100K collection. I sold them off a couple of years ago, but definitely a really cool cover right here. So if you have this book, where would you draw the line? Where would you draw the line on sending this book or not? You can see at a 9.8 raw, this book has a value of $260, graded $330. The 9.6 raw, not 198, and weirdly, the graded value is 175. I probably need to ask a couple of questions about that data because that looks a little wonky. But with that said, that is probably the lowest that I would go with this book in terms of sending it in to be graded. Because part of it is this. Let's say that you had a couple of bucks into this book, right? You're going to absorb the shipping to and fro, the clean, the press, the grading, right? In my opinion, you want as much cushion as possible in that book to be able to absorb the ebbs and flows of the market. Now, if you're going to keep this book like just forever, it doesn't matter so much. But if you don't want to end up in like negative territory, right? You want to have as much cushion as possible to allow the book to kind of have its natural value fluctuations over time. And so let's say again, if you went with the 9.2, there's not a whole lot of cushion there, unless I was about to say, unless you bought it for cover price, but even there, you still have to pay for shipping to and from, clean press, grading. There's just not enough there, you know? The 9.4, $135, it's just not enough cushion, in my opinion. And that's why I think the 9.6, and again, I will reiterate what I said a few moments ago. There's nothing wrong with Mylar and polybags. There's nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, there's a discount code down in the description where you can get a couple of bucks off at BCW. So check that out. Again, I had a couple of copies of this. I did grade it. Mine were 9.8s, and the value, I do believe, when I sold them was a little bit different than what you're actually seeing here. But you want to consider, if you're going to spend a couple of bucks, are you really making an investment into your collection? And that's why, again, that margin, that cushion that I spoke about is helpful. So those are the three books that I wanted to kind of rip through. And again, if you want me to maybe showcase one of your books, leave that in the comment section, and maybe, just maybe, it will be featured in an upcoming video. With that said, we are going to wrap this up. I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, give the video a thumbs up. If you want to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.
This thing on? Mic check. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me clearly. Yeah. Should you practice art, or should art be your practice? I had a question, so I asked it. Not to anyone specifically, but to my inner God, you know? The one that's gonna be a master, the one that's more than a rapper, the one that's an educator, the one that seeks enlightenment. He travels with concepts, he's got the mindset expansive. He understands that his time combined with travel and concepts makes his mind convex. Sort of like when you look at a brain scan, straight off meditation, we was concaving until we had that eternal dialogue that created our dialect. Now we in distinct rooms of pure souls having them conversations, synergy and combination.